Arlington County Board of Zoning Appeals. Welcome to our monthly meeting for April. You know, the Board of Zoning Appeals is also called the BZA, so if you've never heard that term before. My name is Terry Russell. I'm the chairman of the Board of Zoning Appeals. The board is made up of 5 citizens appointed by the Circuit Court. In addition to me, I have Judy Freshman on my far left, who's the vice chairman, Paul Melnick to my left, Charles Smith to my right, and Inta Malice to my far right. Also present are the professional staff, including Deputy Zoning Administrator Andrew Noxon, who serves as Secretary to the Board of Zoning Appeals, Norma Cozart, who is the Zoning Administrator for the county, and Cheryl Williams, our zoning technician, over here to the far right. We thank you for being here and extend a warm welcome. To avoid disruptions, we ask that you please turn your cell phones or pagers off and put them in the silent mode. On the front table, you will find copies of the staff report for each case before us this evening. I recommend that if you have not seen that report for your case, that you get a copy and review it before your case is called. The board's powers are prescribed in the Code of Virginia and are set out in further detail in the county's zoning ordinance, adopted by the county board. The Board of Zoning Appeals does not have the power to rezone property or to amend the regulations set forth in the ordinance. That authority rests with the county board. This board does have the authority to do 3 things. We can approve use permits that allow modifications of placement requirements for structures on 1- and 2-family lots where there is no option in the zoning ordinance to allow such modifications. We can grant variances from the specific requirements of the zoning ordinance, and we can decide appeals of decisions of the zoning administrator. When approving use permits, the Board of Zoning Appeals may impose conditions that it deems necessary in the public interest, including limiting the duration of the use permit. In order to approve a use permit, the law requires that the board find that the proposal meet conditions and that the use permit will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood, or will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood, and will not be in conflict with the purposes of the master plans and land use and zoning related policies of the county. To do this, the BZA shall consider whether the modifications will promote compatibility of development with the surrounding neighborhood because the structure's overall footprint size and placement are similar to the structures on the properties surrounding the lot in question, and whether the modification will help preserve natural landform, historical features, and/or significant trees and foliage. When granting variances, the board must determine that the strict application of the ordinance would produce undue hardship, that the hardship is not generally shared by other properties in the same zoning district, and that the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property, and that the character of the district will not be changed by the granting of the variance. A Virginia Supreme Court ruling requires that a variance cannot be granted unless the effect of the zoning ordinance, as applied to the piece of property under consideration, would, in the absence of a variance, interfere with all reasonable beneficial uses of the property taken as a whole. When deciding appeals of the zoning administrator, the board must determine if the zoning administrator acted correctly. This evening, cases will be called, and a brief staff report and recommendation will be given by the staff. Following that, board members will ask any questions of the staff that they have. Next, applicants or their representative will be given an opportunity to make comments to support the application or appeal. If they choose to make a comment, they must come forward to the podium so that their comments can be recorded for the record. Next, all speakers for the item will be called. Speakers must fill out a speaker slip, which is available on the table in the front of the room. After we hear from speakers for and against the proposal, the board may permit the applicant a brief opportunity to clarify any points. The board may ask questions of any speakers, but does not permit and will not condone any cross-examination or direct questioning by others. We have deemed the following time limits for speakers to be sufficient: 5 minutes for applicants for use permits and variances, For use permits and variances, we have deemed 3 minutes for representatives of organizations and 2 minutes for individuals as sufficient. After the board has gathered all the information they need and discussed the case, it will decide the matter by voting on a motion duly made and seconded. A majority is needed to approve any motion. Any appeal from the decision of the board must be made to the circuit court in accordance with state law. After your case of interest is heard, you're welcome to stay for the balance of the session or leave at your convenience. Again, thank you for being here this evening. And would the Executive Secretary please call the first case?
Thank you and good evening. Our first case tonight is V-11001-15-UP-3. This is a use permit amendment request by Danielle and Carolyn Usinski to permit a setback of 16.6 feet to a new landing from the 19th Street South right-of-way instead of 21 feet as required. This is to permit changes to a landing and stairway approved by a previous use permit. This is in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 1820 South Quincy Street.
Staff is recommending granting the subject use permit with the conditions as included in the recommended resolution. Do we have any questions of staff on this case? If not, could we hear from the applicant, please? Welcome. Yes. So you made this change in the process of building the deck, and so then when everything was done and the various wall checks and so forth that are required, you were off, so you've come back for to see us again. See if any of the members of the board have questions for you. Board members?
Mr. Chairman, one quick question. The original design did not include this landing that we see? Yes.
Sorry. The door that you see
Yep.
is a little over to the right. The door was originally all the way over to the left, and the steps came straight down to meet the door. So the door got put in a little bit to the right, so there are two reasons why we had to have the landing. Number one, because of the door. Number two, it was just quite a steep step for me to walk out with my two children. And we did the addition ourselves, so it was a learning curve of making a mistake and having to go back.
So you would have had a straight run of steps without a landing. Landings help
I don't have anything more.
break that. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Do we have any speakers on this item, Cheryl? We don't have any speakers. It's a pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Smith?
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-11001-15UP3, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Second.
I heard an echo. I believe I heard Ms. Malice. Is that right? So the motion to approve as recommended by the staff, subject to those conditions in the proposed resolution, has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
I do just have one question. Sorry. I saw that in the paperwork it says that we have to get a building permit within a year, but we don't because it's already built.
Well, you'd have to amend the building permit you had for the change.
Thank you.
The next case is also a use permit amendment. It's V-11002-15-UP-2. use permit request by Reed Bush to permit a setback of 4.5 feet to the egress window well from the left side property line instead of 5 feet as required, 13 feet to the eave, 14 feet to the wall of a new screen porch, 16 feet to the bay window, 18 feet to the eave, and 19 feet to the wall of a new two-story addition from the rear property line instead of 25 feet as required. Also a setback of 18.5 feet to the eave and 19.5 feet to the porch base from the 21st Street North right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. Also an aggregate side yard of 14.5 feet instead of 18 feet as required. This is all for the construction of a new rear screen porch, new two-story rear addition with the second-story bay window, new left side egress window well, and a new covered front porch with a storage area below. It's in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 5849 21st Street North.
Thank you. Does board members have any questions of the staff? Ms. Malice.
Are you aware of any neighborhood letters subsequently coming in?
I have not had any so far.
Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, I'll go ahead and call the applicant to come forward. Is Reed Bush here? Or representative? What we typically do in these cases is entertain a motion to move the case to the end of the docket. Ms. Melnick?
I'd like to so move.
Second.
Thank you. Been moved by Mr. Melnick, seconded by Ms. Malice, to move this case V110215 UP2 to the end of the docket because no representative has arrived. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, next case, please.
Next case is V-10943-14-UP-2. This is a use permit amendment request by Sharon Gold to permit a setback of 6.7 feet to a new two-story addition from the right side property line instead of 10 feet as required, and also an aggregate side yard of 11.3 feet instead of 18 feet as required. It's for the construction of a new two-story right side addition. It's in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 1115 North George Mason Drive.
Do board members have any questions of the staff?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Malice?
is there any significance in the fact that the original structure was torn down and rebuilt in the same location? Does that enter into this at all?
The issue was what they got approval for before was to build up upon the existing structure. So they got a second story over an enclosed porch. When they tear that down, they're basically getting rid of that first floor nonconformity. And so they're starting from scratch with the two-story addition, and that's not what they were granted before.
And is there an issue of conformity? Was that conformity to the zoning or conformity to?
The zoning, the right side yard setback. It was an encroaching porch, which we have an ordinance that says you cannot build up above unless you're meeting the setback. And they were granted the ability to do that through the Board of Zoning Appeals last year, and then tore down the entire first floor and built it all from scratch.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the staff? If not, I'm ready to hear from the applicant. If I may ask a question, and so this is the addition you were going to build, it was just originally, the first floor was going to remain and you add the second floor. Yeah, so it's no further encroaching in any direction. Thank you. Helpful. Any questions of the applicant? Thank you. Let's see if we could go to public testimony if we have any, Ms. Williams. We don't have any public speakers.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Freshman.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution approving the use permit V-10943-14-UP2.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Melnick to approve the resolution with conditions as recommended by the staff in the staff report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I have a question before we go on. Is the podium working?
It may have cut out on us.
Can we take a look at it right quick? And there's no timer lights on. The speakers have sounded softer than normal. I'm afraid they won't get on the record. Speak into it, Drew. It sounded right. Can you speak into the speaker? The microphone. No, see, you don't sound. Well, we won't waste much time on it. It just.
May not be recording.
Put one of those on the table.
I was going to suggest too. Yeah, Mr. Smith says try one of the ones. Switch out one for one of the ones on the table. Well, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if you all have to hear us, it'd be nice if you all could be heard too. Not working. Okay. Well, we'll proceed. Ask folks to speak up. Probably pick up on air microphones mostly. So go ahead, Drew, and call the next case, please.
All right, it's V-10970-14-UP-2. It's a use permit request by Benjamin Moncars and Catherine Otis to permit a setback of 15.2 feet to the porch from the 20th Road North right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required, 12.6 feet to the porch from the North Randolph Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required, and this is for the construction of a new front porch. It's in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 4054 20th Road North.
Thank you, Mr. Knox. And do you have any questions for the staff?
Just confirming that we spent a lot of time on this property in the past, and one of the issues was the new front porch with a second story. And so now we're getting the front porch without the second story.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff or comments before we go to the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Malice?
any letters from neighbors on this?
I've not received any additional letters.
There were letters the first time around?
I believe there were a few, but that was a completely different application, completely different project almost, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And let's hear from the applicant, please.
Good evening. I'm Yuri Sagata. I'm the designer.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. So we are essentially requesting to rebuild the existing front porch in the same location as it currently exists. In reaction to neighbor sentiment in the last meeting, we changed the design to open up the structure so it's more open from all sides. And also the project has been redesigned so that we are not requesting anything from the board except for the rebuilding of the front porch as it is in its current location. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have related to that.
Let me just ask right quick. So what you're planning to do is remove the roof and go straight up
So the main,
for the main house?
correct. We're building by right over the existing structure. Not rebuild the front porch by right. So we're asking to rebuild it in a different design, but we're asking to rebuild it in the same location.
Okay, so, I mean, just speculating, if you didn't get the porch, you'd still build the house.
The house has a lot of front porches on a lot of the houses on the street. So the front porch is a very important component to the project, which Katie's family would definitely like to keep. Very important piece of that.
Thank you. Do board members have any questions for Mr. Sagatov? Thank you, sir. I do have 3 speakers. Brett Holloman, please. Please come forward for your speaking time. Good evening.
My name is Brett Holloman. I own a property next door to the left of it, which is 43 North 20th Road. As you well know, I spoke the last time we were through this. I don't necessarily have any opinion either way as to approve or oppose the porch. I think it is a characteristic that probably the house needs to at least somewhat fit into the neighborhood. So therefore, as far as that goes, I really have no opinion either way on that. What I do have opinion is, once again, which was very strongly about the issue before, was the overall, and we know that, what I'd like to emphasize is that the design and architecture of the house, that is a big opposition in the neighborhood. And that porch also plays into it, kind of flat roof front porch that really doesn't lend to the architecture of the neighborhood. They by right certainly can do what they have to do with the home, but I also, once again, probably may even become more active in trying in the future in other projects as well. I'm very distraught about this in the way that the design, I believe that the design and architecture of the home does have an effect of the neighborhood as far as marketability of the homes and the value, which it could even have an effect on the value of my home for that matter. But with that saying, I just think there needs to be more emphasis put towards builders and such to build within, a certain line, even though it's not designated a historic area. We start doing this to our county where we have homes on every other corner of the block and everything else that don't have anything other than maybe a front porch, if that's in the sense of front porch, if that may be what you want to call it. Shows no continuity with anything else in the neighborhood. And we wind up with that. We wind up with blocks that just have, nothing in common. Like
I think so. Yes, yes, sir. 2 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Holland.
Once again, I have no opinion either way. I think that, it's not going to affect me as far as the actual building out or the design itself.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Patricia Dubin. Good evening.
Whether trees are, they're going to try and keep the trees on both the Arlington side, where one was fir tree, and then there are a couple of trees on the Randolph side. And because the design is as stark as it is, I feel like it would be beneficial to have two main. The other item that I wanted to touch on is I do see that they've made some substantive changes from previous, what we saw earlier. But the roof line and how high it is has not been changed. And I still find that at the top of the street, and it's a street that goes downhill, I find that to be disruptive.
We'll see. Once we hear the testimony, we'll ask the applicant follow-up questions and see what they have to say about the trees for you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next speaker, C.R. Andros. Hello.
And at the last meeting, y'all said that we don't have any, we cannot say how the building looks, but we have had a lot of renovations in our area, and the contractor in our state has kept, he did a lot of renovations in our area, and he kept in the ambiance of our neighborhood. And my question, I have a question for you all, but I don't, that house had a 6-foot fence around it, and you all denied the variance and made the guy that lived in that house bring it down to a 4-foot fence. Now you all are considering a 30 or a 40-foot high building, and I can understand it's on the corner, and it goes, according to this, it goes straight up. And I don't know why you would just allow a 6-foot fence and make it on that corner because it blocks something, and you all are considering a 40-foot high straight up structure. And like you all said, you can't tell them how it looks, or we have no say on how it looks. But the ambiance of that neighborhood is it's an ultramodern. There's nothing wrong with the structure as it is. It's perfectly good. It's really nice, but it doesn't belong in our neighborhood. See that fence there that I'm talking about? You make him bring it down to a 4-foot fence, and now in place of that 4-foot fence, you're going to make a 40-foot structure. And like Patricia said, are they going to take those trees down? I don't know how they can not build what they want to build without taking. There's like 5 trees there. I just don't know how they're going to do it. Thank you for your attention. Nice structure. It belongs in my
Thank you very much. That's the last speaker. I'd like to put the questions that this lady just raised to the staff to respond to with regard to fence heights and their requirements in the zoning ordinance and the height of the main building, which would be the house on this lot. Could you comment on that for us, please?
As for the fence, I'm not sure what the decision was made on at that time, why it was denied. Typically, the BZA in the last few years has not supported fences that are right along a street that are, taller than 4 feet. And a lot of that on corner lots has to do with vision clearance. If there's a 6-foot fence there right near the corner of 2 streets, you can't see when you're making a right or left turn, and makes it tough to see pedestrians. As for the building, there is a height limit of 35 feet, which is to the midpoint of the roof, not the ridge of the roof. So you can have a structure that reaches 40 feet, 42 feet possibly at the very ridge, the very tip of the roof. So the by right portions of this are allowed by the zoning ordinance. They can have up to a 35-foot home. And really what we're seeing here is just the porch. We're reviewing the porch plans and not the rest of the building, which can be done by right under the zoning ordinance, where they can come in tomorrow and get a building permit approved.
Thank you. Public testimony is over, madam. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me try. The house is allowed as a matter of right. That's the height limit in the zoning ordinance, and anybody up and down the street can build a house that tall. The fence is a whole separate issue with separate regulations, and apparently some request was made for something different from what was approved, and the 4-foot fence was approved. That's the best we can do for you. We don't have any authority to regulate the height differently on this particular house because it's being built as a matter of right. I'm going to move on to Mr. Sagatoff to talk to us about the trees that Ms. Dubbin asked about. Please.
Yeah, so the trees are being evaluated. There are several issues with the pines relative to how close they are to the foundation and the condition of the foundation. So that is certainly a concern of Katie Ben. And so they're being evaluated by the project does not require a site plan or a tree preservation plan. That's not part of what we're doing. If a tree has to be removed, they're certainly going to replace it with a similar style tree. But the trees that are noted, which are shown on the screen, particularly the one at the front right corner, is really very close to the foundation and is causing issues with it. So that's being evaluated. The short answer is we're not sure yet. There's a good chance that at least those two right there do need to come down in order for the structure to be safe and healthy.
Mr. Melnick?
Yeah, I have a question about, it was mentioned about the character of the neighborhood and so forth, but it's hard to tell from the drawings, but is it going to be more of a modern look than, like around the period of time this was built? Is that the look that's been going for, that you're striving for?
It's certainly more modern structure. I mean, it's certainly more modern structure than many homes in the neighborhood. There are modern homes in the neighborhood. It's a transitional neighborhood in that a lot of houses are being redeveloped, and the architecture is it's the right of the owner, and it's what their style is, and it's certainly I certainly empathize with the neighbors, and it's difficult to see something of things that are not necessarily in your same style, but it's their right, and we're trying to abide by the zoning regulations to ensure that those regulations are met. The house, the lot is very tight, and the corner lot, which are two difficult constraints, but the short answer to the question is yes, it's certainly a more modern structure than currently there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? The case is with the board. Any discussion or motion?
I do have just a comment. I have some sympathy with the conversation about architectural guidelines and having, some kind of homogeneous scale in a neighborhood. I mean, that's an issue that many neighborhoods are discussing and facing, but it's not something that is legislated at this point in time. And if that's an interest in the community to go in that direction, then that has to be done through the legislative process, through the county board. It can't be done here because we have no power to do that. On the specific case, again, and it's similar to scale, placement, design is also not regulated in terms of compatibility. And so the only question for me would be, is this by right house better with or without a porch? And I would say it's probably better with a porch than without.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Smith?
I want to associate myself with Ms. Malice's remarks. I, as an individual, may prefer one style, but that's not what we're tasked with here. I think Ms. Malice really put her finger on the issues, and as staff has identified, it is compatible with the neighborhood. This is a typical front porch, even in terms of scale and placement, even though it's not a typical looking house. That's not really our purview. The explanation for the height, it does seem odd that one can have a spire almost that's more than 35 feet, but that's not where the measurement is taken. So again, that's a legislative action that would have to be taken up with the county board. So therefore, I'd be in a position to support the staff's recommendation.
Any other questions or comments?
Motion?
Ms. Freshman?
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-10970-14-UP2, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Motion has been made by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No, the motion carries. Variance is granted. Use permit is granted. Next case, please.
Next case tonight is V-10994-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Ellie Argel to permit a setback of 7.5 feet to the home from the rear property line instead of 8 feet as required, 9.2 feet to the porch eave and the eave of the home, and 10.5 feet to the wall of the home and porch base from the 19th Street North right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. It's for the construction of a new 1 1/2 story addition above the existing home and expansion of the existing basement below the existing home. This is in the R6 zoning district, premises known as 1828 North Underwood Street.
Mr. Chairman? Since this was a deferral, do we know if the applicant's here? The applicant is here? Good. Thank you.
Do we have any questions before? Go to the applicant. Let's hear from the applicant, please, in this case. Good evening.
I apologize for last month, and I didn't get a notice, and I didn't follow up. Today I came and I got letters from the neighbors.
Certainly. Okay. Thank you. Why do I have the wrong case? I've got the wrong case.
Year ago?
Yeah, I've got the wrong one.
994.
Sorry, I got my papers confused for a minute. Thank you for these. Would you proceed then with your remarks, sir?
I applied for variance because the house was built in 1915, and the basement floor is all patchwork cement, and also it floods every time it rains, and it's not high enough to walk straight, and you keep hitting your head and stuff where it goes. And I want to stay, I'm going to stay in the same footprint. I'm not going outside the footprint, and it's going down, and it's not visible anywhere. If we allow it to do the work, and it will add value to the house, and also it will allow me to have an extra usable living space and storage space. And as far as the eve goes, it complies with, it doesn't take anything from zoning ordinances, same eve. And also, without the eve, I'll end up with a very ugly looking house. On one side, I'll have an eve, on the other side, I won't have an eve. And also, not having an eve, every time it rains, cause some cause some damage. And in the back of the house, when the application says I need an eve, but I don't really need an eve at the back of the house. And porch, I didn't touch the porch. The porch stays as this porch.
Have any questions of the applicant by the board? If not, do we have any other discussion or a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mellon.
Okay, I'll move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached resolution in case V 1099415 UP1 with the conditions as stated.
Motion's been made by Mr. Melnick and seconded by Ms. Freshman to adopt the staff's recommendation? Yes, staff's recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, the next case is V-10985-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Belai Tadasi to permit a setback of 1.3 feet to the egress window well, 4.6 feet to the eave of the home, and 5 feet to the wall of the home, and the stormwater planter from the left side property line instead of 10 feet is required, and 4.6 feet to the eave of the home and 5 feet to the wall of the home from the right side property line instead of 8 feet is required. Finally, an aggregate side yard of 5.9 feet instead of 18 feet is required. It's for a new 3-story home with a left side egress window well and a rear stormwater planter. It's near our 6th zoning district, premises known as 1718 North Cameron Street.
Do board members have any questions for the staff? If not, can we hear from the applicant, please? Good evening.
This is my second time here tonight, and I'm here to present for your approval the revised plan as instructed in the preferred decision of January 15th hearing. The January 15th hearing instructed the applicant to redraw a new plan and architectural drawing showing the 5-foot side yard as a zoning recommendation instead of 3.5 feet as requested by the applicant. The revised plan shows the 5-foot side yard and an architectural drawing in compliance with the building and zoning code. The reduction from 18 feet to 15 feet wide house resulted in a 2-bedroom house than a 3-bedroom house as originally requested. The new floor plan shows a modest 4-bedroom house that will fairly accommodate a 5-member and joint family. I ask members of the board to approve the revised plan as requested.
Do any board members have questions of the applicant? If not, we do have one speaker, so I'll go ahead and take the speaker. So if you'd have a seat, sir, up front. Thank you.
Good evening.
Please state your name, sir.
My name is Robin Cox. I have my only interest in this is that I'm the designer of the building.
Yes, sir.
It's been 44, and I designed an 18-foot wide building, which is close to the recommended width of the recommended dwelling. This is, of course, narrower than the basic building code would approve as a standalone building. 25-foot setback. Met meeting with your side yard recommendations of 5 feet. Staff has a confusing recommendation here about not recommending the third floor, approving it without the third floor, but then their verbiage later says approved as plan attached to the. It's exactly the same wording on both. If you approve it as requested or approve it with staff recommendation. As for the window well, we would like to have the side window well and would agree to a condition that emergency egress from the basement, that it would be no taller than 6 inches above grade, and that it would have a readily removable grate at the top to prevent somebody from stepping into it and falling. But it is not likely to put a railing around it, because it will be a deep well.
Let me ask you a question while you're here on that particular point. To approve that window well with what you're describing, would that meet building code for the room to be a sleeping room?
Yes, it would, but it also meets, I'm not sure that Arlington has this particular code. Fairfax, I know, does. If you finish the basement, it must have 2 means of emergency egress. Without that window well, you only have 1 means of the basement door.
On the sides? On the sides, you could put one on the back or on the front. Right.
And I'd have to do a whole redesign on
I see.
the new Chesapeake Bay stormwater management device that I've got back there.
Okay, thank you. That answered my question. Let me see if any members of the board have any questions for this speaker. Mr. Melnick?
Oh, I have one for staff, but it can wait after this question.
Are there questions for the speaker? Ms. Freshman?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if you've added a 3rd story, which I personally find too tall, but you don't have any plans to actually have living space in the basement?
No, it really does not. It's not practical with the living space, the sort of the shotgun nature of it. Basically, it's a very long, narrow space. I would like to have the option of having a second egress. In general, if I were building it, in general, I would do what I call a semi-finished basement. I would stud it out, insulate it, and set the drywall to the walls without taping and finishing it, just to have it more amenable to the buyer trying to think about how to finish it. But I would not be finishing it with flooring and paint and full lighting and electric.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Melnick had a question for the staff.
Yes. My question for the staff is, what are the main objections to this egress window well? Is it just its closeness? Do you look at it as a safety hazard? Could you explain the staff's objections?
It would be both. I mean, generally, as a rule, we don't support structures that close. Egress window wells are already given a projection into the side yard. The other thing is when he put that stormwater planter on the rear, when he decided to make a 3rd story on top, that elongated the entire house, whereas he could have put the window well in the back and actually met the setback. So that's our other issue with it. The other thing is the safety issue, and covering it up might be a solution to that, but I don't know what kind of access you're going to have if somebody has to get back there with the structure sitting there. I mean, covering it would help, I would think.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Malice?
Were you done?
Yeah. Well, I was going to have a follow-up question to the applicant. So when you're ready.
Let's take Ms. Malice's first. We'll come back to you. How about that? Okay, go ahead, ladies first. Go ahead, and then we'll.
I had a
Mr.
question.
Melnick has a question.
I see that there are 4 letters, but there's no input from the nearby neighbors. Was there a reason for that? And that's a question for whoever gathered up the letters.
Yes, sir, please come forward and address this question.
Okay, because the design that you previously had was quite a bit different than this design. So I was wondering if people have had an opportunity to think about how they would feel about a three-story house next to their property. So you just didn't hear from them? I didn't. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Tedeschi, Mr. Melnick has a question.
Yes, I actually had a question for the designer.
Mr. Cox?
So I heard staff, state their objections to this window well, but would it be feasible to reconfigure yeah, exactly, in the back, yes, and put the egress?
But I'm going to have a 3-foot clearance in the emergency egress well. I got to have at least 3 feet wide and 3 feet depth. But I could probably also do it in such a way that I still have a 15. I don't know exactly what the environmental services are going to require for the gallonage of the stormwater management. That's what has not been through the environmental engineering aspect of that.
Okay.
But yes, I can make it so that the emergency egress is on over here.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get a sense, like with this tank, is it completely under the ground? Like, is it covered? What does it look like from the outside? Is it just an underground tank?
No. What's intended is going to be basically a pervious surface, which then filters down through the gravel and filtering, and then is released. It'll have an overflow, just like what they're doing now is putting these structures on the sides of all the houses. We don't have the room to do that. So it's got to be something in the rear. Most of the new houses end up with 2 and sometimes 3 of these stormwater management gardens that stick up about this high out of the ground. Can't do that. So I've got to use there's 3 different models, one California, one DC, and I think what the other one is models that basically represent this type of stormwater management.
Okay. Thank you.
I haven't had a chance so we know whether we're approved on the setbacks. Then I'll go talk to council to environmental services. Anything else, gentlemen? Ladies?
So any other board members have questions for Mr. Cox or Mr. Tedeschi?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question to Mr. Tedeschi, and it has to do with kind of a follow-up on Ms. Malice's question about outreach to your neighbors. Personally, I'm not so put off by the height or the fact that it's 3 stories, but I am very concerned that the neighbors immediately to the side, on either side, haven't seen this new plan for a 3-story structure that would be right next to them, long and narrow. I am wondering whether you would be agreeable to having evidence of contact with your immediate neighbors being brought before us, of this plan that is now before us. Because this is a starkly different building. Personally, I don't have a problem with it, but I would be very concerned to vote yes for something that your neighbors on either side have not seen and is, if you heard that earlier discussion with the kind of A-frame tall home, this is a tall structure also, and narrow, and it'll be unique to the neighborhood. And it is a tough lot, so I'm sympathetic to that. But I am not sympathetic without evidence that the neighbors have seen exactly what is being proposed. And I guess then, so that's a question to you, whether you would be willing to in effect, wait and get evidence. And number two, staff, is that the house that we see that's on the street behind this, is that the bottom level, is that a partially underground basement?
Yes, that's correct. There's quite a slope on that lot.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's four stories from one side, whereas the other side, it looks like it's 2.
Right.
2.5. I can't believe.
Thank you.
May I address the property immediately to the right has recently been sold. The owner of this now nursing home property has been sold. It is undoubtedly going to be taken down, and one of the, we'll call it advantages, because that's probably what's going to go in there, is what on a full-size lot those houses are being built. They all essentially have a three-story appearance, not as narrow, but their heights, they're all pushing at the 35-foot height. We kept this roof on this one as a low slope, a 4-12 pitch, to try to stop it from being that big pointed roof that somebody mentioned before. Now, the new house on the left, even though what you see is the garage immediately adjacent to this property, you'll notice that house has in essence, a 3-story appearance to its base. So we're not talking about anything that's going to be any taller than the one house next that's already there and what is most likely going to be built on the right side.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Malice?
I think you make some good points. However, I'm sorry that the person is in a nursing home, but someone with that property has rights, and I think those rights have to be respected, regardless of whether the property is in sale. At some point, somebody owns it and has an interest in that property. Well, then the new owner has an interest in it, and that person ought to be aware of what's going on. You don't know who the owner is?
No. The new owner who purchased the new purchaser.
Because the sale hasn't concluded? Yeah, I mean, usually the ownership is a matter of public record. And staff, that's a question that, staff could direct you to how to find who the owner is. My second comment is that, the idea that this lot would support, ought to support a 4-bedroom home, I think is a bit of a stretch. I mean, it is a small lot, and I think you have to be realistic that you can't build everything that you want on a small, narrow lot like this. And so I'm not inclined to support that third story because for that reason. Now, if there's a compelling reason to go in a different direction, I would consider it. But this is a departure, and it's a very small lot. And we've had other cases where, when the lot is very small and non-conforming, you just can't get everything on it that you'd like to get on it. So that's just my comment for now. I'm interested in whether you would like to pursue my colleague, Mr. Smith's thought about doing some further outreach with the community, because really there's no input from anyone near you except up the street, across the street a little bit, but I'd like to see you make another effort. Thank you.
Do other board members have questions or comments?
Yes, I share the same thoughts have been already shared, just about the input from the neighbors. And also, I also would recommend, reconfiguring the egress window well on that, just for the reasons staff said. Those are my thoughts.
I'd like to say, too, that I'm not supportive of the third story. Although 35 feet is the by right height limit, that's what it is. It's a by right height limit. This is not modifying an existing house. This is building a new house on a non-conforming lot. And I'm inclined to think that this two-story house as proposed is reasonable for a house for this lot, but not the third story. I think there's some potential for other houses in this neighborhood, which we would, if it came to us, would look at on a case-by-case basis. And I think the smaller lots, smaller houses work better on smaller lots. That's where I'm coming from. If there's no more discussion, does anybody want to try a motion?
Yes, sir.
Freshman?
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution denying the subject use permit for a side yard setback of 1.3 feet to the egress window well from the left side property line, and denying the request for a 3-story home, but approving setbacks of 4.6 feet to the eave of the home and 5 feet to the wall of the home and the stormwater planter from the left side property line instead of 10 feet as required, and 4.6 feet to the eave of the home and 5 feet to the wall of the home from the right side property line instead of 8 feet as required, and an aggregate side yard of 9.2 feet instead of 18 feet as required. We're at a new home with a rear storm planter. And this is for agenda item V-10985-15-UP1.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Malice for the staff recommendation.
The staff recommendation. I would note also that there are conditions in the resolution.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Call for the vote then.
Mr. Chairman, just
Mr.
before
Smith.
The applicant and his representative had their hands up after the motion was made. I think they have a question.
Certainly.
Denying the third level, if we reconfigure quote the third level to more what is like the one up the street on the other side of the street, where they have a tall gable front, and then it goes up and it has a living space in what is actually a third floor, what you might consider an attic. Is that within the thinking of board?
I could make my comment would be that if you're going to reconfigure the building again, then you would be looking for a deferral in order to allow you time to do that, and also to be sure that you had a comment from the neighbors on either side, however long that took.
Is anyone
Yeah, what was it? It was 1919 North Cameron Street. Yeah. I know that one.
Well, let me say this. I don't think we can make a judgment based on a house that we haven't been asked to look at, even if we knew of that one, or to suppose that you're going to design something for this lot that we would find, suitable for that. The question comes down to, do you want more time to consider redesigning yet again?
Would it be possible, if he agrees to a deferral, would it be possible to be on next month? Or is it 2 months?
Unless you can get all the materials in, new plat, new plans by Monday morning. If you can get it in by Monday morning, this coming Monday, I can certainly do that.
The footprint would remain the same. There'd just be a minor change to the removal of the window well on the side, but that wouldn't change the basic structure of what is the stormwater management. I'd just be cutting out a section of that for the, I could get the architectural for the rest of it. I don't think I can get the survey done by that. And why do you want it for, if we do it by Monday, we can get it on the next one, or you can wait 2 months? For next,
2 months.
I get it for next one, or is it going to be 2 months? I have to get all of them. Okay, I will put it over there to get it by close of business on Monday. That's what they're saying, we have to have it into them by close of business on Monday.
Or go 2 months.
Or it'll be 2 months instead of 1. Okay.
They can't make that decision. If we defer it to next month, then you'll have to ask for it to be deferred again next month if you don't get everything in by Monday. Or we could go ahead and do it for 2 months and give you more time to work on your redesign. And your neighbors, and also the comments that have been made by the board about the size of the house. Well,
I think you basically follow the haircut model and mail a registered letter to anybody who gets a phone to return receipt question. That way they could notify. You send out the sign.
yes, you will need to decide whether you want us to consider a motion to defer this case or to hear the motion on the floor and We have a motion on the floor.
It can be
Mr. Smith,
withdrawn.
I'm going to ask.
It can be withdrawn, and the person who seconded it could agree to withdraw their second, and then a new motion could be made.
Or we can vote on it and.
Or you could
and
vote on that and then make a new motion.
If there was a need to make a new motion.
Well,
you could
you're going to, a
certainly-
deferral motion.
That's where my issue is.
Yeah. Because you have a motion to deny right now, or to adopt the staff's recommendation.
Which does approve a house on the property.
That's true.
So I guess it's left to the maker and seconder of the motion as to whether this goes to a vote. So
I can inform the maker of the motion that I would be willing to withdraw the motion in favor of a deferral, but I will defer to you. Sorry.
My inclination is to proceed with the vote. However, if there's support for a deferral, I will withdraw the motion.
I move to defer then.
Mr. Smith has moved to defer. Is there a second?
To a date certain?
To 2 months, to the June meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Is that the 17th?
No, it should be.
Oh, it should be
week
earlier.
before, shouldn't it?
The earlier one.
Double check. I think it's around the 13th.
This one was late.
Monday is the 15th.
Here, I got a calendar. We don't know what's on the,
Can we just say the June meeting?
so the June meeting is fine, but
It's usually that second
it
week.
should be the 10th, but I don't know that it is.
Sounds like the second, yeah.
It's the 10th too. It's May is the 13th.
Gee, this one was supposed to be last week.
Was it really?
I think so.
Third Wednesday.
April 1st was Wednesday. And I wonder why I didn't get my package. It was Easter, I think, was the problem.
Wonder why this was moved to the 3rd.
Okay, so a motion has been made and seconded to defer to the June meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We'll see you back in June.
Okay. Next case is V-11003-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Christopher and Teresa Jerusi to permit a setback of 20.3 feet to the stoop base from the 9th Road North right-of-way instead of 21 feet is required. 6 feet to the new one-story addition from the right side property line instead of 8 feet is required. Also, an aggregate side yard of 17.9 feet instead of 18 feet is required. It's for the construction of a new one-story right side addition and a new covered front stoop. This is in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 6011 9th Road North.
Are there any questions of staff? If not, could we please hear from the applicant? Hello. Welcome. That's not his house?
The map picture.
No, that's not his either.
That's the wrong one? Oh, that's strange.
Is this why people say they can't find places in Arlington?
Sorry about that. Was it
Yours is very
6017, not 6011?
Oh, good, the public notice is correct.
I must have thought it was 6011.
Yeah, it would.
Yes.
We,
Well, we have enough information to take, it's just nice to have.
We can pull up
pictures.
Google Street View if we need to, if you need to see it.
Yeah, if anybody does. I don't.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Smith,
if there aren't any more comments or questions, I'd move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution approving the use permit V-11003-15 UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
motion's been made by Mr. Smith and seconded by Ms. Freshman to approve as recommended in the staff report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you and congratulations.
Next case is V-11004-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by William and Lillian Bowen to permit a setback of 10.4 feet to the landings from the McKinley Road right-of-way instead of 21 feet is required. So the construction of 2 landings in the front yard. It's near a 6 zoning district, premises known as 906 McKinley Road.
This is landings for the front walkway. Can we hear from the applicant, please? Thank you. Does any member of the board have a question for the applicant? If not, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, even though this was built without the approval, that was, I imagine, emergency condition where you have crumbled steps and you can't get out. So therefore, I'd move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution approving the use permit V-11004-15 UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Smith, seconded by Ms. Malice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, our next case is V-11005-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Sam Mefta and Sepide Habibi to permit a setback of 14.4 feet to the eave overhang from the North Danville Street right-of-way instead of 21 feet is required. It's for the construction of a new roof above an existing non-conforming building. It's in the R5 zoning district, premises known as 1031 North Danville Street.
Any questions for staff? If not, we hear from the applicant, please. Please state your name and tell us what you have for us.
This is fairly straightforward. The front wall sits motion to the street. There's a existing front wall that's non-conforming. There's an existing second floor in the house now that we're trying to modify next to the bedroom, which would involve sister new porch degree. It's very close pitch. It pitched slightly higher than traditional. And then overbuilding some gables, a new roof over the front porch, which is the idea is to look at the design elevation to bring it into modern standards. Several houses on the street have this type of appearance. The design itself is still modest compared to some of the other houses in the neighborhood. To give it not just a better floor layout, but a more even street look. And we had the owner did send a form letter. He showed the plans and elevations to the neighbors. We have 4 or 5 signatures on here. This is the original. I think that's I can turn that in.
Why don't we give it to the staff, and it could be made part of the record here. If you need it for some reason, you could get it from come into the office and get a copy from the staff.
Modern design rather than those that you just pour in the overhang. Trying to get a modern look. That's the whole thing right there. A more livable house and a more beautiful street.
All right. Any questions of the board?
Just that, Mr. Chairman, that which was turned in, were those the neighbors on that are contiguous?
Maybe he could tell us.
Let's take a look.
Okay.
Doesn't appear to be, but it might be across the street.
1042 Danville. That's kind of up the street. Where's 1042? 4027, 1027. That's right next door. 2606 11th. That's kind of catty corner on the 11th Street. And 1036 Danville, which is right across the street, kitty corner across the street. Okay. You don't have 1035, but that's okay.
Let me just, when we're talking about neighbors and who's signed, who gets letters, direct letters? The immediate neighbors side by side across the street and behind, sort of?
Usually, most adjacent across the street. I think there's about 100-foot radius or something close to that.
So the county, as part of the public notification process, which the Arlington County picks up itself, and most other jurisdictions put that on the applicant, actually, does send letters to adjacent neighbors informing them of the hearing and so forth. Thank you.
Motion?
Please, Ms. Fresher.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution approving use permit V-11005-15-UP1, subject to the conditions.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Now I believe we're down to a case that we moved on the agenda.
Like Mr. Bush is here.
Could you call it, please?
Certainly. All right. It's V-11002-15-UP-2. This is a use permit amendment request by Reed Bush to permit a setback of 4.5 feet to the egress window well from the left side property line instead of 5 feet as required. 13 feet to the eave and 14 feet to the wall. A new screen porch, 16 feet to the bay window, 18 feet to the eave and 19 feet to the wall of a two-story addition from the rear property line instead of 25 feet as required. Setback of 18.5 feet to the eave and 19.5 feet to the porch base from the 21st Street North right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required, and an aggregate side yard of 14.5 feet instead of 18 feet as required. It's all for the construction of a new rear screen porch, a new 2-story rear addition with a 2nd-story bay window, new left side egress window well, and a new covered front porch with a storage area below. It's in the R6 zoning district, premises known as 5849 21st Street North.
Any questions for the staff? If not, let's hear from the applicant. I think they work. Just talk to us. Do we have any questions of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Malice?
On the point of the neighbors, do we have letters from the neighbors? But you're bumping up now, right?
Right. That's my right.
I see.
On the existing structure, the addition on the rear, we're not bumping up. Staying on the same side.
Are you the resident? Okay, thank you.
Kind of to follow up, but there is new construction that's going to go on. So Ms. Malice's question was about the current proposal. And you said, though, unprompted, that everyone, all the neighbors are supportive. Can you describe what efforts since in the recent past you've undertaken to let them know that phase 2 is going to happen soon?
We're very familiar with that.
So that's the cul-de-sac.
Yes.
Thank you. So did you sign his petition? Because he had an extensive petition. There was a lot of outreach. So that was a no.
That wasn't the question.
Thing is, you got to realize we have this big greenway behind our house, so it creates space and probably 100 feet or more between my property line and the property line behind it. So big buffer zone. It's very beautiful. All the way to the property line construction that will allow still much farther
I think that satisfied my concern, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for the applicant or the staff?
Motion?
Ms. Freshman?
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-11002-15-UP2, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Your second?
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Melnick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Move approval of the March 11, 2015 minutes.
Second.
Minutes have been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Move adjournment.
I don't think so. I do have something I want to ask of the board. Well, two things. We got the information about, from Drew on an email about meeting with the county attorney next month. Does that suit people if is the idea that we meet a half hour early? Would a half hour do us? Shouldn't it? So if Drew, you'll make that happen, let us know. And then the request was, our questions. I would think so.
You just forward it to me and I'll
Directly
get it to her.
Drew.
Thanks.
Great.
The other question I had, I have some concerns about these are mine, so I would propose that I just want to hear from you all. About the website and our stuff on the website. I'm on the board and I always have trouble with the website, and I have some ideas that I think would help. And what I'd like to do is approach the county in kind of a formal way as chairman of the BZA or member of the BZA with some suggestions how that might be better, how we might get a few little things here and there. For example, there's no mention of the Board of Zoning Appeals on the Community Planning Housing Department page. And there is about all the other groups. There's never meetings on either the county calendar or on the